Welcome, everyone. We are so excited that you have joined us tonight. We have so much great information to share with you and several amazing speakers. I have to start out by telling you that this topic is very near and dear to me. I lost my mom to cancer 15 years ago, and I just hate the C word more than anything. But we have some good, exciting news to share with you tonight. I have some dear friends that she has been going through that cancer journey again. Her cancer came back after 2 years of remission, and she has done every single thing, mostly keep a great attitude, but gone through all the chemo and all the radiation over the last 2 years, and just has diminished in size over more and more and more until the last time I saw her just a few weeks ago. I hugged her goodbye, and it was just like hugging a skeleton. And her doctor told her really probably the best thing to do is just go on home and don't do any more treatments. And her husband and her absolutely did not agree with that advice. And so they searched out actually some phytonutrients and probiotics, and mega doses of both. And within a week, she was out in the truck checking calves. They ranch. And he told me, "You're just not going to believe it when you see her again." And I was just amazed. I mean, like answered prayer, totally answered prayer. But my brain was like, okay, wait a minute. Phytonutrients and probiotics, phytonutrients and probiotics. We know about this. We do. And I had a conversation earlier, almost a year ago, with one of our speakers tonight. And she had talked about in her journey of recovering from a similar situation with leukemia, how she mega dosed and flooded her system with the phytonutrients and probiotics. And so I immediately reached out. There she is, Dr. Valentine. And I said, oh my gosh, she and I had talked to my friends. And I said, how could this be possible? Could this be like what you were talking about? And she said, absolutely, yes. And so I said, oh my gosh, so would you help share that information on our Stories of Hope? Also, then I reached out to Denise, who is going to be our first speaker. Denise has a master's of public health and spent her entire career analyzing clinical trials. And so I pulled up a reference list on a lot of different studies, like 65 different studies. And Denise excitedly told me, Melinda, we do not have time to analyze all of those before one night. And I said, I know, but doesn't this just explain? Like, we just kind of picked a few, and there's so much research, y'all, that has been ongoing for decades, talking about what you're going to hear about tonight, how phytonutrients and probiotics can support our body, and our bodies can totally heal and be well. So I thought about this, and the other thing that kept going through my mind is we actually have some research, several studies. Mick's got a slide to show on down regulating what happens when you do flood your body with the phytonutrients and all of the wonderful nutrients that come from plants. And actually, we've got multiple studies that show how your body then really does turn on regulating cells that are for positive processes and turn off the processes that are more negative. So all of this went tumbling around through my brain, and I said, Denise, let's take a few minutes and just explain a few of the things. So I asked Denise if she will help me with that and share her experiences, and then we're going to turn it over to hear from Dr. Valentine. So Denise, let me introduce you. Denise has a brand new computer, so she's got to get the audio on so we
There we
can
go.
hear. There
There you
you
go.
go.
Okay, now I'm talking. Okay. Yes. Yeah, I did look at a lot of those, but I can't go into a lot of detail, but kind of a couple of the main ideas I got is that high doses of antioxidants and probiotics, they make the cancer therapies like radiation and chemo more effective. And also, another really interesting fact that I found is that the cancer cells, they can uh, the antioxidants can help the stop the metastasis to other organs and help from reoccurring. So, and this is just across different kinds of cancer, not just one like breast, rectal, and all of that. And so, the high levels of antioxidants they will can kill the cancer cells. And so, anyway, a little bit about my story is back in 2015. I went to a wellness clinic and they were checking our one of the screening tests was checking the carotids. And they said my carotids was fine, no blockage or anything, but they said you do have a lump in your thyroid gland and you need to get that checked out. So I did. And, they did blood tests and biopsies and stuff like that. Went to a couple specialists and they recommended that I have my thyroid gland removed. And actually, I had, both thyroid glands removed just because of our history of cancer in our family. And so, and it was, malignant, and I did have iodine therapy, but I also had started taking Juice Plus in 2014. And so, what I did is I took 4 times the dose during that time, before, during, and 8 weeks after, approximately. I can't tell you exactly because it was a while back, but I took 4 times the dose of our fruit, veggies, and berries, our trio, which have been around for over 30 years. And then I also took, I ate 2 shakes a day because I had this incision here and I could not, swallow very well. And so, anyway, went back to the doctor 2 weeks later, my first post op visit. And he just looked at me and he said, you are just healing so well. He says, I don't think I've ever seen a patient at 2 weeks where their incision looks that good. What are you doing? And so, anyway, I explained to him, I was just taking all this wonderful plant phytonutrients and just flooding my body with really, really good nutrition. And naturally, I talked to him a little bit about our products too. And so, anyway, he just said, keep doing what you're doing. And, plants help you heal, they make you feel better, and they help you recover. So I am so thankful. I continue to have taken Juice Plus, and back then we did not have our probiotics. I also worked in microbiology for a good part of my career, and we had another stories of hope on the superbiome. So anyway, just super, super excited about all these great plant phytonutrients and, the power of plants work. So anyway, thank you so much. I could talk a long time, but I'm just super excited to hear Dr. Valentine talk tonight.
Yes, Denise, thank you so much. We're so thankful for your story. And again, it just re-emphasizes the way that we can protect our bodies. And I learned that term from Dr. Valentine. I always had told people we need to fuel our bodies. And she, as I've heard her over and over say, how we need to protect our organs with all of these plants. So I am delighted to introduce you all to Dr. Valentine, dear friend of mine. She has a phenomenal story that you're going to hear about tonight, overcoming acute myeloid leukemia. And she's recently turned her story into a book, which is fascinating. And it is literally how to prepare your life and health for the unexpected, new life from near death. So, Dr. Valentine, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm really honored to be here, just to be able to share my story. And I love hearing from you and from Denise. It was Denise, right? That just
Yes.
spoke? Yes, yes. Because the truth is the truth. Now, I heard about Juice Plus from a woman in a business meeting. It made total sense to me because, as a holistic practitioner, I had never heard of a nutritional product that had the kind of research that it had. And that was 18 years ago, and it didn't have nearly as much research as it has now. However, I immediately got it. I was looking for something that I could disagree with. I have to be honest, because the lady stood up and said, I'm going to talk about fruits and veggies in a capsule." And my husband, who is also a naturopathic doctor, and we just looked at each other and we were thinking, here we go again, another product, because we don't recommend a lot of products. We are classical naturopaths, meaning we stick really to the basics. Anyway, I couldn't find anything wrong. And immediately I signed up as a partner and I started eating it and sharing it with my family and with my clients. Little did I know that 14 years later, I'd be diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia and frankly, not expected to survive at all by the doctors. I entered into the hospital in a state where my husband had to revive me, actually. That was part of my story. I really almost met my ancestors. When I arrived, they wanted me to fill out a will immediately. They wanted my will. They really didn't expect me to survive for many reasons. Number one, most people who enter into the hospital at my age, I will be 78 in a couple of months. And so that was 22, and I was 73 at the time. And most of them have about 35% of their blood leukemic. 87% of my blood was leukemic. That's another story for another day, how it got like that. Because people say, and I've always taught, that your genes are not your destiny. You can switch them off or on with lifestyle. So, how could that be? And if I was so healthy and living such a healthy lifestyle, how could it be that I had this cancer in the first place? Well, first of all, they didn't say anything about chromosomes. And they found two chromosomal anomalies that would have revealed themselves, and frankly, probably would have revealed themselves much earlier had I not had such a healthy lifestyle. However, they looked at me again and they said, "You're an anomaly. We're not sure what's going on in your body because you have the organs of a 20-year-old." And they just stabilized me, did not treat me for 2 weeks as they tried to figure me out. And every day they would come in and say, "We can't figure you out. You're an anomaly." And so, yes, the first one, yes, he's going to pull up that picture. Here it is. And though this is where I had a complete bone marrow transplant because with almost 90% of your blood being leukemic, there was nothing else they could do, really, unless I would go ahead and have myself completely cleaned out and then replaced. And my daughter, one of my daughters in New York, I'm in Florida now, one of my daughters was prepped to have her bone marrow, have stem cells taken from her bone marrow. It was immediately frozen and shipped to myself in Florida. And that's when it arrived, and they were about to give me those stem cells. I know that especially from the research, that my organs were protected. It was my lifestyle that saved my life. Of course, we would never say that anything that we take or eat is going to cure you. First of all, I don't believe in cures anyway. I know there is such a thing as healing, and the body heals itself when you do two things. When you remove obstacles to healing and give it what it's starving for at the cellular level. And all those cancer cells were a huge obstacle. And so we had those removed, and then I was flooding my body all along. And when I say flooding, when I was in the hospital, and of course they didn't want me to take anything in the hospital because they want to err on the side, they do err on the side of caution, and they have no idea what this is that you're going to take. And so I said, well, I'm going to have my Juice Plus. And they said, well, no, you're not. And I said, can I have broccoli? And they said, yes. And I said, well, this has broccoli in it. This is fruit. And we went through the whole conversation where I showed them that it is NSF certified, which is extremely important because it certifies that there is nothing in the product that is not on the label, like mold, bacteria, other contaminants. And they have found those items in foods and such on shelves, even in health food stores, because they are not that protected. So back to what happened after 2 weeks. What had happened was they sent my paperwork from Orlando to Tampa. They couldn't figure me out. And then they sent it to NIH and sent me home with medications. And then 2 weeks later, it was confirmed. And if you can click, you'll see that that was me a year later because I had hair down that I could sit on almost. And then, of course, I was bald. And this was me a year later. And I know that it was my lifestyle. And yet, nutrition is only one part of that lifestyle. And Juice Plus was a huge part of my nutritional intake. I ate 5 to 6 of each 3 times a day. At that time, we didn't have the superfood. I just kept flooding it in because I knew what it was. In the hospital, they give you something, a container to have water in, and I would just have 3 of each in the water all day long. I was sipping on that. And I know, like I said, from the research, that my DNA was being protected and that the inflammation was greatly reduced. When you have cancer, you've got a lot of inflammation. And when you're taking chemotherapy, strong chemotherapy that they don't usually like to give to someone older than 55 or so. And yet they told me I had the organs of a 20-year-old. And they were able to handle that strong chemotherapy. If you go to the next one, I'd just like to show it's only a 1-minute video. However, there is a significant decrease in DNA damage in the lymphocytes. How amazing is that? How amazing is that? If you click again, you should see this 1-minute video. You'll probably, oh, it clicked off. Will it play? Perhaps not.
I think
I
next
have I have it I have it elsewhere. Just hold on a second.
In the meantime, I have to say that all of the what I call my live well method, every step, thinking well, drinking well, eating well, sleeping well, and moving well. Eating well, like I said, is only one part of that. Are you able to? Do you have it? Awesome.
I do.
The influence of nutrition on our genes is a new field of research called nutrigenomics. We know that genes are responsible for our health or disease situation, But what many people think, that they are victims of their genes, is simply not true. Our lifestyle impacts more than 50% of our health, and diet plays a major role. Genes can be turned up or down by what we choose to eat. So, the Australian researchers analyzed changes in gene expression in the Juice Plus group. They wanted to know whether supplementation with Juice Plus affects certain groups of genes involved in inflammation and DNA repair. And now get this. They found that over 1,600 genes were changed after just 8 weeks of taking Juice Plus. The message here is simple. Good nutrition from a wide variety of fruits and vegetables is proven, once again, to be an important component of good health.
Thank you so much. I get so excited, and I've seen this so many times, over and over and over and over again. Family, and I call everybody family because we're in the human family. Family, there is nothing like Juice Plus. Nothing. Nothing that even comes close to it. And yet there's so many things on the market and so many claims being made. And that is why every Wednesday I have an event called The Proof is in the Blood. And we talk about the research. And I show that very same video because that's really the only way we can know is when we can see the results. So we're not making wild claims. And certainly I'm not saying it healed me. I'm just saying it gave me the ability to let my body do what it does. The body heals itself when you give it what it's starving for and when you remove obstacles. I don't want to take up too much of your time because I also can just go on and on and on. I get so excited. And it's been 18 years. And I'm more excited now about the company and about what we're doing and about the people that we are able to help, the lives that are being changed than when I first started 18 years ago. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share.
Oh my goodness, Dr. Nalani, I just adore every time I get to hear you speak. And you have been such a blessing for all of us with your amazing story, your history and lifestyle, and your medical expertise to help us understand how this all works. So many of you that are either on with us tonight or maybe watching this recording often kind of fall into three categories. And so the first one is you might be watching this because you told somebody you would get on, and you're sitting there thinking, you know what, I'm really not interested in this for myself. I'm not going through cancer. I don't expect to go through cancer. I'm pretty sure that you do probably know somebody, sadly, with cancer, but you might just be thinking, this is great, but not for me. But you probably do know somebody that is in this battle. And so if you would like to introduce us to them, we can get this recording to them. And the main thing we want to do is create this hope and share this information that there is hope and help for your bodies to heal. The second group is you might be so thankful that somebody invited you tonight to hear Dr. Valentine. And you might just be, this is what I need right now. I've got a lot of history of cancer in my family. I do not want to go there. You might be undergoing treatment right now, or maybe you might have had that in your past. So reach out to the person that invited you tonight so we can help you get the information that you need. And then the third group is you might be like the rest of us on the call tonight. We just can't wait to get this information out to more and more people. So again, reach out to the one that invited you tonight so that we can help get you connected. We definitely need more boots on the ground. As Dr. Valentine has said, there is so much chatter. There is so much negative information out there. And these stories of hope are meant each month to do exactly that, to bring hope and the research behind not just testimonials, but the studies and the data that we can medically explain how this is supporting your body. So we can stay on for a few minutes after we end the recording. Maybe, I hope Dr. Valentine can do that. So if you have some questions and you would like to stay on for a minute, please do so. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope this has been very hopeful for you tonight. Thank you.
You know how it is when you feel like something is not quite right? You don't know what it is, but you tell yourself, I'll feel better tomorrow after a good night's sleep. And tomorrow comes, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, until you finally realize that something is wrong. There I was, a healthcare professional. I had been teaching health and wellness for well over 30 years as a naturopathic doctor. I stopped breathing. I was revived by my husband. I was taken to the emergency room in the hospital where I heard those dreaded words, "You have acute myeloid leukemia," and I was not expected to survive. New life from near death is my story. When you read my book, you will be drawn into the depths of the raw emotions and the thoughts I had as I was going through this experience. And though you will see how my healthy lifestyle saved my life, how it prepared me for the unexpected. Click on the link below, and when you do, you will receive, along with the book, the 5 Pillars of Health, which are the foundation and have been the foundation for many years of my healthy lifestyle.